My parents kicked me out on Christmas morning. My sister smiled and told me good luck starting over in the slums. I took the only thing my grandfather left me and walked into the largest private bank in Atlanta. The manager took one look at the account number I handed him, rushed out, and locked the office door behind him. "Miss Washington," he said, his voice actually shaking, "you need to sit down." Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to a toxic family who completely underestimated your worth. My name is Maya. I am 32 years old, and my world shattered on a morning that was supposed to be filled with peace and joy. It was Christmas morning in Atlanta. The scent of expensive cinnamon candles and roasted pine filled our sprawling Buckhead mansion. A massive 12-foot Christmas tree stood proudly in the center of the grand living room, drowning in designer gifts, velvet ribbons, and glittering ornaments. From the outside, the Washington family looked like the absolute pinnacle of success, excellence, and generational wealth in our community. But inside those impeccably decorated walls, a profound and freezing emotional coldness permeated every single room. None of that holiday warmth reached me. I was standing in the grand foyer, shivering slightly in my worn sweater, staring at my old suitcase that had just been violently hurled across the polished marble floor. The heavy thud of my luggage hitting the baseboard echoed through the enormous house, shattering any fragile illusion of family loyalty I had foolishly held onto. My mother Vivian stood at the top of the sweeping staircase, casually adjusting the belt of her pure silk robe. Her face, usually arranged in a picture-perfect smile for her society friends and church committee members, was twisted into a sneer of pure, unadulterated disgust. She marched down the steps with alarming speed and slapped a piece of heavy cardstock directly onto my chest. The paper fluttered to the floor, landing right next to my winter boots. It was a formal eviction notice. "Your basement rent is exactly 2 days late, Maya," my mother said, her voice sharp enough to cut through solid glass. $3,000. You either pay it right now in full, or you pack up the rest of your trash and get out of my house today. We do not harbor freeloaders in this family, and we certainly do not do charity work for our own children. I stood there completely frozen, trying to process the sheer cruelty of her words. "Mom, it is Christmas morning," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I possibly could, despite the painful tightness rising in my throat. "I told you last week that my corporate accounting firm downsized. I lost my job due to budget cuts that had nothing to do with my performance. I just need a few extra days to transfer some funds and get back on my feet. Please just give me until the end of the week." The heavy oak doors of the home office swung open and my father Marcus stepped out into the foyer. He was wearing his custom-tailored suit, looking every bit the prestigious community leader and successful businessman he endlessly pretended to be. He scoffed loudly, walking over to stand shoulder to shoulder with my mother. His dark eyes scanned me from head to toe with a look of absolute contempt that made my stomach churn. "Downsized," he repeated, rolling the word around in his mouth as if it tasted foul. "That is just a fancy modern word for being entirely incompetent. You have always been a massive disappointment, Maya. A constant drain on our resources and our patience. You think because it is a holiday you get a free pass to leech off our hard-earned wealth. We have a pristine image to uphold in this community. Having a jobless 32-year-old daughter squatting in our basement is a disgusting stain on the Washington family name. What will the country club members say when they find out my daughter cannot even hold down a simple desk job?" "But $3,000 for a damp, unfinished basement room?" I countered, my hands trembling at my sides as the blatant injustice of it all washed over me. "That is more expensive than a luxury apartment in downtown Atlanta. I have paid you on time every single month for the past 5 years without a single complaint. I have never asked you for a dime. I just need a tiny bit of grace today of all days. Grace is reserved for people who actually try to succeed in life." My mother snapped immediately, not missing a single beat. She crossed her arms tightly, the heavy diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist, catching the sparkling holiday lights. "Look at you. You have absolutely no ambition, no drive, and no vision. You wear cheap clothes, you work dead-end jobs, and you contribute absolutely nothing to the legacy of this family. You are a walking embarrassment. We are completely done subsidizing your failures. Pay up the $3,000 right now, or get out of my sight." The sheer lack of parental empathy was suffocating. These were the very people who were supposed to protect me. The same people who sat in the front pew of the church every Sunday morning, wearing their finest clothes, preaching loudly to the congregation about charity love and community uplift. My mother, a proud and highly vocal member of her prestigious sorority alumni chapter, was always the first to host lavish fundraising galas for the less fortunate. Yet here she was, ruthlessly throwing her own flesh and blood into the freezing December weather over a fabricated and extortionate rent delay. "I do not have the cash in my account today, Dad," I pleaded softly, looking directly into his eyes, desperately hoping to find just a fraction of paternal instinct left in him. "Please. It is freezing outside. Just give me until Monday morning when the banks open." My father let out a harsh barking laugh. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a thick silver money clip. With agonizing slowness, he peeled off several crumpled low-denomination bills, mostly ones and fives, and threw them aggressively directly into my face. The dirty paper money fluttered around my head like falling leaves landing on my shoulders, my shoes and scattering across the pristine marble floor. There he spat, pointing a manicured finger at the mess on the floor. "There is $20. Take a public bus down to the downtown homeless shelter where you belong. Maybe spending Christmas dinner with the other failures of society will finally teach you how to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Do not ever tell anyone that I never gave you anything. Now pick up your pathetic bags and walk out that door before I call the neighborhood security to drag you out." The humiliation burned hot and fierce in my chest, a physical pain that radiated all the way down to my fingertips. I looked at the crumpled dollar bills scattered at my feet, then slowly looked back up at the two people who had brought me into this world. I did not cry. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing my tears. I had shed all my tears for them years ago when I first realized that their love came with a price tag and a set of impossible conditions that I could never afford. I bent down deliberately, stepping over the money they had thrown at me, slowly picked up the worn handle of my suitcase, and prepared to walk out the door into the freezing winter morning. But the nightmare was far from over. Before I could even reach out to turn the heavy brass doorknob, the sound of slow mocking applause echoed from the top of the grand staircase. Click, clack, click, clack. The distinct sharp sound of expensive designer heels striking against the polished hardwood announced the arrival of the family pride and joy. The golden child was finally awake. My older sister Chloe stepped into the bright light of the chandelier dressed in a flawless silk lounge set that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She leaned over the mahogany railing, looking down at me with a cold, triumphant smirk that promised absolute destruction. Chloe descends the sweeping mahogany staircase with the exaggerated grace of a runway model. She adjusts the collar of her emerald green silk robe, holding a crystal flute of mimosas in one hand and her latest smartphone in the other. Just seconds ago, she was likely recording a live video for her 500,000 followers preaching about Black excellence and generational wealth. Now the camera is off, and her true face is on full display. It is a face twisted with a superiority complex that she has carefully honed since childhood. Right behind her is her husband Bradley. He is wearing a pristine cashmere sweater draped casually over his shoulders, looking every bit the entitled trust fund heir he claims to be. Brad steps up beside Chloe and wraps an arm around her waist, flashing me a condescending smile that makes my blood boil. He is a white man who married into a wealthy black family and somehow managed to absorb all of my parents' worst traits while weaponizing his own privilege against me. "You know," Maya, Brad says, taking a slow sip from his mug of artisanal coffee, "America really does not have any room for the lazy. You cannot just sit around waiting for handouts. It is all about the hustle. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and actually create value in the marketplace." I stare at him, clenching my jaw so hard my teeth ache. This is coming from a man who has not held a legitimate job in 4 years. He calls himself a venture capital consultant, but I have seen the household mail. I know his family trust fund dried up completely after his father was indicted for securities fraud. I know his credit cards are maxed out to the limit. But in this house, reality does not matter. Only the illusion of wealth matters. "Look at your sister," Brad continues, gesturing grandly toward Chloe, as if she is a masterpiece on display. "She just closed on a $3 million estate in the suburbs. She is building an empire. That is exactly what hard work, vision, and a proper success mindset look like. Meanwhile, you are 32 years old, and you are still begging to rent a damp room in your parents' basement. It is frankly pathetic." My mother Vivian steps forward and affectionately pats Brad on the arm. "You are so right, Bradley. You always have such a brilliant business mind. I thank God every day that Chloe married a man who truly understands the value of financial independence." Then she turns her piercing gaze back to me, her expression instantly hardening into stone. "Did you hear your brother-in-law, Maya? That is what a real provider sounds like. You should be taking notes instead of standing there looking like a stray dog. I look from my mother to my father, then to Chloe and Brad. They stand shoulder to shoulder, a united front of arrogance and fabricated prestige. They genuinely believe they are the royalty of Atlanta. They believe their country club memberships, their designer labels, and their carefully curated social media profiles make them untouchable. Chloe takes a delicate sip of her mimosa and lets out a soft, mocking laugh. Honestly, Maya, I really hope you find a nice cheap place down in the slums. Maybe you can find a roommate who also enjoys being a complete failure. Just do me one massive favor. When you inevitably have to apply for government assistance, please do not use our family name on the paperwork. My podcast sponsors are already skittish about brand safety, and having a homeless sister would completely ruin my aesthetic. The sheer audacity of her statement hangs heavily in the air. For years, I was the one who quietly fixed her messes. When she overdrafted her accounts in college, I sent her my savings. When she needed to file her taxes for her newly launched lifestyle brand, I did the forensic accounting for free to keep her out of an audit. But there is no gratitude in this family. There is only a relentless hunger for dominance. My father checks his gold watch, looking bored and irritated by my continued presence. Leave your keys on the console, Maya. We are going to hire a professional cleaning crew tomorrow to scrub out that basement. Chloe wants to turn it into a climate-controlled storage room for her designer shoe collection until they officially move into their new mansion. You have wasted enough of our holiday. Get out. I do not scream. I do not beg. I do not defend myself or try to explain that I am not actually unemployed, but rather transitioning my massive financial portfolio into a private equity firm. Arguing with them is like pouring water into a bottomless pit. They do not want to hear the truth. They only want a target to project their own insecurities onto. I reach into my pocket and pull out the heavy brass key to the basement door. I drop it onto the marble entryway console. The sharp clatter echoes through the silent foyer. Enjoy the new mansion, Chloe. I say, my voice eerily calm and entirely devoid of the tears they so desperately want to see. I hope it brings you exactly what you deserve. I turn my back on them, grip the worn handle of my suitcase, and walk out the massive double doors. As I cross the threshold, the heavy oak door slams shut behind me with a resounding thud. I hear the deadbolt slide into place. The finality of the sound is deafening. The freezing December wind immediately bites at my face. The pristine lawns of the Buckhead neighborhood are blanketed in a fresh layer of snow. Luxury cars sit quietly in the driveways of the surrounding mansions. I am standing outside in the bitter cold, completely cut off from the family that just discarded me like an unwanted piece of trash. But I am not crying. I do not feel broken, and I certainly do not feel like a victim. I let go of my suitcase handle and slip my bare hand deep into the pocket of my heavy wool coat. My fingers bypass my phone, and my wallet reaching straight for the very bottom. There, hidden away from the world, my hand wraps tightly around a different key. It is an antique brass key, heavy, tarnished with age, and cold to the touch. It is not the key to a house or a car. It is the key to a private safety deposit box at the oldest, most exclusive financial institution in downtown Atlanta. My grandfather, Jeremiah Washington, pressed this exact key into my palm on his deathbed 10 years ago. He was a brilliant, self-made man who saw right through the superficial rot that was slowly consuming his son and daughter-in-law. He knew that my parents cared more about impressing the elite social clubs than they cared about their own flesh and blood. He knew they would eventually try to strip me of everything. They think they have won, I whisper to the empty snow-covered street, staring at the imposing facade of the mansion that just locked me out. They think they are the masters of this estate. I squeeze the antique key so tightly that the jagged edges bite into my skin. A slow, dangerous smile spreads across my face. They are standing inside a house that they believe is their untouchable fortress. What they do not know, and what they are about to find out in the most devastating way possible, is that they do not own a single brick of that property. I pull my phone out of my other pocket and open my secure messaging app. I select the contact for my lead wealth manager, typing a single decisive sentence. It is time to execute the protocol. Activate the Jeremiah Trust. I hit send, grab my suitcase, and start walking down the driveway. I am not walking toward a homeless shelter, and I am certainly not starting over from the bottom. I am walking toward the bank, and I am about to collect a decade worth of overdue debts. The bitter chill of the Atlanta morning fades the second I step through the towering brass doors of Sovereign Heritage Trust. This is not a regular commercial bank. You do not come here to open a basic checking account or deposit a holiday bonus. This institution manages the generational wealth of the city's elite. The lobby is a cavernous space of polished Italian marble, dark mahogany paneling, and profound, intimidating silence. It smells like old money and citrus polish. The security guards stand like statues in tailored suits, their eyes tracking every movement. I walk straight past the plush velvet waiting chairs and approach the main concierge desk. The woman sitting behind the elevated marble counter is wearing a tailored designer suit. Her nameplate reads, Cynthia. She looks up from her computer monitor, her eyes scanning my snow-dampened wool coat, my sensible winter boots, and my bare face. I can see the exact moment she categorizes me. To her, I am completely lost. I do not belong in this fortress of wealth. My appearance does not scream old money or new tech fortune. To Cynthia, I am just a nuisance blocking the line of sight for the real clients. Can I help you find the exit, ma'am? Cynthia asks. Her tone is perfectly polite, yet laced with a razor-sharp condescension that reminds me instantly of my mother. The retail banking branch for standard checking and savings accounts is located 3 blocks down the street. This building is exclusively for our private wealth management clients and their scheduled appointments. I'm afraid you cannot loiter in this lobby. I do not blink. I do not offer a defensive explanation about my financial status or my identity. I simply reach deep into my coat pocket and pull out the heavy antique brass key. I place it directly onto the immaculate glass surface of her counter. The metal clinks sharply against the glass, a heavy and authoritative sound that cuts through the quiet lobby. The key is intricate, forged decades ago, entirely different from the modern digital keycards used by the rest of the bank. Cynthia stares at the key, her manicured eyebrow arching in profound irritation. Ma'am, I am not sure what you think this is, but we do not operate standard safety deposit boxes here. You are wasting my time. I am going to have to ask you to leave right now before I call security to escort you out. I lean forward, planting both hands firmly on the edge of her desk. I look her dead in the eye and speak in a voice so calm it borders on freezing. Alpha, 7, 4, Omega, 9, 2, Delta, 6, 1, Sigma, 0, 3. For a second, Cynthia just glares at me, her hand hovering over her telephone, but bank protocol is drilled into these employees. Her fingers automatically type the alphanumeric sequence into her terminal. I watch the reflection of her computer screen in the glass partition. The system interface flashes from a muted corporate blue to a stark, vibrant red. A maximum security override protocol demands immediate managerial clearance. Cynthia stops breathing. All the color instantly drains from her perfectly contoured face. Her jaw actually drops. She looks from the glaring red warning on her screen to the antique brass key, and then finally up at me. The condescension in her eyes is entirely gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. She realizes she just threatened to call security on someone holding a master key to one of the most heavily guarded and highly classified trusts in the entire institution. Her hand trembles violently as she reaches under the desk. She does not press the button for lobby security. She presses the silent panic button that dials directly to the branch director's private office. I apologize. Cynthia stammers, her voice cracking so badly she sounds like she is choking. I sincerely apologize, ma'am. Please just give me one moment. Please do not move. Less than 30 seconds later, the heavy oak doors at the far end of the lobby swing open with aggressive force. Desmond Sterling, the senior managing director of Sovereign Heritage Trust, practically sprints across the marble floor. Desmond is a formidable African-American man in his late 50s, known for ruthlessly managing the portfolios of professional athletes, powerful politicians, and real estate tycoons. He is a man who never rushes for anyone. But right now he is breathless, hastily buttoning his suit jacket, his eyes darting frantically around the lobby until they lock onto the brass key resting on the counter. He comes to a screeching halt beside Cynthia. He glares at the teller with a look so severe she physically shrinks back into her expensive leather chair, looking as though she might burst into tears. Then Desmond turns to me. He does not offer a standard corporate handshake. He gives a slight, deeply respectful bow, a gesture of absolute deference that sends a shockwave of whispers through the few other wealthy clients sitting in the waiting area. Miss Washington, Desmond says, his voice thick with a mix of awe and profound relief. We have been waiting for you for a very long time. I am so deeply sorry if you experienced even a single second of delay or disrespect at this desk. Please do me the honor of following me immediately. I pick up the brass key, sliding it back into the safety of my pocket, and follow Desmond without a word. We walk past the regular private meeting rooms with their frosted glass walls. We walk past the standard vault access doors where millionaires store their diamonds and deeds. We approach a private elevator hidden completely behind a mirrored architectural wall. Desmond swipes a specialized biometric card and presses his thumb against a glowing scanner. The elevator doors slide open silently, and we descend deep beneath the bustling streets of Atlanta. The basement level of the bank looks nothing like the luxurious lobby above. It feels like a high-tech military fortress. Thick steel-reinforced doors line the walls. Armed guards stand at strict attention as we pass, their hands resting near their holsters. The silence down here is so deep it rings in your ears. Desmond leads me down a sterile, brightly lit corridor until we reach a massive titanium door marked with a single gold crest. This is the absolute highest tier of wealth management. This is where secrets are buried and empires are quietly controlled. He unlocks the door using a series of complex passcodes, a retinal scan, and a physical key of his own. He gestures for me to enter. The VIP viewing room is breathtakingly opulent, a stark contrast to the fortified hallway. It features plush leather seating, a massive mahogany conference table, and walls lined with secure document safes. A decanter of crystal-clear water sits on a silver tray next to a stack of pristine legal pads. Desmond walks in right behind me. He steps back out into the hallway for just a fraction of a second to give a sharp, definitive nod to the armed guard stationed outside. The guard nods back, turns on his heel, and marches away to secure the perimeter. Desmond steps back inside and pulls the heavy titanium door shut. The mechanical locks engage with a heavy, resounding thud that echoes through the room. We are completely sealed inside, cut off from the rest of the world. Desmond turns to face me. He pulls a pristine white handkerchief from his breast pocket and wipes a visible line of sweat from his forehead. His hands are actually shaking. He lets out a long, shaky breath, looking at me with a mixture of intense nervous energy and absolute reverence. He walks over to the mahogany table, gesturing to the heavy leather chair at the head of the table. "Please take a seat, Miss Washington," Desmond says, his voice dropping to a hushed, urgent whisper. "I am going to open the master file now. But before I show you the documents your grandfather left behind, you need to brace yourself. Because what I am about to tell you is going to completely destroy everything you thought you knew about your family." I slowly lower myself into the heavy leather chair at the head of the conference table. My heart pounds a frantic rhythm against my ribs, but my face remains a mask of complete composure. Desmond walks over to a panel of secure steel lockboxes built directly into the reinforced wall of the vault. He inserts my antique brass key into the primary slot, types a sequence into a digital keypad, and turns his own master key simultaneously. A heavy metallic click echoes through the silent room. He pulls out a thick, leather-bound portfolio, its edges softened by years of careful storage. He carries it to the table with the reverence of a priest handling a sacred text. He places it directly in front of me, untying the thick black ribbon that binds it. "Your grandfather, Jeremiah Washington, was a man of extraordinary vision." Desmond begins, his deep voice filling the quiet room. He built his wealth during a time when men who looked like him were actively kept out of the banking system. He fought for every single dollar, every acre of land, and every ounce of respect he earned in Atlanta. But more importantly, he possessed a terrifyingly accurate judge of character, especially when it came to his own blood. Desmond leans forward, resting his hands firmly on the polished mahogany table. "Jeremiah loved your father, Marcus. But he was not blind to his fatal flaws. He saw how your parents became entirely consumed by the illusion of high society. He knew that in Atlanta, the pressure to maintain a certain image among the elite is suffocating. He watched them prioritize exclusive country club memberships, luxury vehicles, and the relentless need to impress their social circles over actual financial stability. They spent every dime they ever touched trying to look like they had old money, while completely ignoring how to actually generate it. I stay perfectly still, hanging on his every word as the puzzle pieces of my childhood begin to shift. And most importantly, Miss Washington, Desmond continues, his tone hardening. He saw exactly how they treated you. He watched them pour endless resources into your sister Chloe, rewarding her superficiality and arrogance, while constantly punishing you for your independence and your intellect. He knew that if he left his wealth to your parents, they would squander it entirely within a decade, trying to maintain a facade. And he knew that they would leave you with absolutely nothing. Desmond opens the portfolio and slides a thick, watermarked document across the table. I look down at the heavy parchment. It is a property deed. The deed to the sprawling Buckhead mansion I had just been violently evicted from. I scan the dense legal jargon, searching for my father's name or my mother's name. Neither is there. "Look at the owner of record," Desmond instructs quietly. I read the bold print aloud. "The Obsidian Heritage Trust." Desmond nods, a distinct look of satisfaction crossing his face. Exactly. 10 years ago, right before his passing, your grandfather executed a massive restructuring of his assets. He completely bypassed your parents. He transferred the deed of the Buckhead estate, along with several other highly lucrative commercial properties and investment portfolios directly into this private corporate trust. He locked the real wealth away in a fortress they could never breach. He reaches back into the folder and pulls out a second document, sliding it over the deed. And these are the Articles of Incorporation for the Obsidian Heritage Trust. Read the name of the sole beneficiary and absolute controlling director. I stare at the paper. The letters blur for a fraction of a second before snapping into sharp, undeniable focus. My own name stares back at me. Maya Washington. The air leaves my lungs. The realization hits me with the force of a freight train. I own the trust. I whisper the words, feeling foreign and impossibly heavy on my tongue. Which means, I own the house. You own every single brick, every blade of grass, and every piece of custom molding in that estate. Desmond confirms, his voice thick with pride. You have owned it since you were 22 years old. My mind races, frantically trying to reconcile this monumental truth with the harsh reality of my daily life. But my parents act like they own it. They boast about their property taxes to their friends. They literally just kicked me out of it this morning. Desmond lets out a short, humorless laugh. They are allowed to act however they please within their social circles. But legally speaking, Marcus and Vivian Washington are nothing more than month-to-month tenants. Your grandfather set up a highly restrictive lease agreement. They are permitted to reside in the property provided they pay a mandatory monthly maintenance and leasing fee directly to the trust. I feel a strange cold sensation washing over me. A question forms in my mind, one that makes the hairs on my arms stand up. Desmond, I say, keeping my gaze locked on the documents. Exactly how much is their monthly lease payment? Desmond opens a financial ledger, flipping to the most recent page. He points a perfectly manicured finger at a recurring deposit line, $3,000 even, due on the 25th of every month. For a long, unbroken moment, the vault is completely still. I sit perfectly motionless. The number echoes in my head like a ringing bell. $3,000. The exact amount my mother violently demanded from me this morning. The exact amount she claimed was my overdue rent for a freezing, unfinished basement room. The exact amount my father threw crumpled $1 bills at my face for failing to produce. My mind plays a rapid montage of the last 5 years. I remember freezing in that basement, wrapping myself in 3 blankets because my mother claimed heating the lower level was too expensive. I remember eating instant noodles while listening to them host lavish catered dinners upstairs for their society friends. I remember handing over my hard-earned paycheck, believing I was contributing to my family, believing I was doing the responsible thing. The shock evaporates, replaced instantly by a chilling, razor-sharp clarity. A slow, dangerous smile spreads across my face. They did not have the money. My wealthy, arrogant status-obsessed parents did not even have $3,000 to pay their own rent. For the past 5 years, they have been extorting their own daughter, emotionally abusing me, and calling me a leech, just to squeeze out the exact amount of cash they needed to pay their landlord. And the ultimate, delicious, world-shattering irony of it all is that I am their landlord. They have been taking my survival money, insulting me for it, and then desperately wiring it directly into my own corporate bank account, just to keep a roof over their heads. They have been using my money to pay me, I say, the smile on my face growing wider and colder by the second. They forced me to fund their illusion of grandeur while making me believe I was a burden. Your grandfather anticipated their financial incompetence, Desmond says gently. He designed this structure to protect the asset. He mandated that the trust remain blind and managed by our firm until you reached your 32nd birthday, or until you explicitly came to us with the key to activate your executive control. He wanted you to build your own career first. He knew you were brilliant. He watched you study forensic accounting, saw you working multiple jobs, and he wanted you to understand the true value of wealth before handing you the keys to the kingdom. He wanted you to be forged in fire, so that when the time came, you would be strong enough to do what must be done. I lean back in the heavy leather chair, fully absorbing the magnitude of the power that has just been placed into my hands. My entire life has been defined by their cruelty. Every skipped meal, every humiliating comment about my thrift store clothes, every time my sister Chloe paraded her designer bags in my face while telling me to work harder. It was all funded by my own stolen grace. They turned me into their personal ATM to finance their fake aristocratic lifestyle. But the game is over now. The blindfold has been ripped off, and I am sitting at the head of the table. I am no longer the scapegoat of the Washington family. I am the absolute controlling authority of their entire existence. Are you ready to assume full executive control, Miss Washington? Desmond asks, sliding a heavy gold pen across the table toward me. By signing this activation ledger, you take immediate command of the Obsidian Heritage Trust and all its subsidiary assets. The bank will formally recognize you as the sole principal. I pick up the gold pen. It feels cool and perfectly balanced in my hand. I press the tip to the signature line and sign my name with bold, fluid strokes. The ink settles onto the page, permanently sealing my new reality. It is done, Desmond says, closing the ledger with a satisfying thud. You are now officially holding the reins. Whatever you command regarding the properties, the accounts, or the tenants, we will execute immediately and without question. I look at the deed to the Buckhead mansion. I think about my mother adjusting her silk robe as she threw me out into the snow. I think about my father throwing money at my feet. I think about Chloe and Brad standing on the staircase laughing at my misfortune while bragging about their imaginary real estate empire. I want an audit, I say, my voice ringing with a brand new terrifying authority. I want a complete microscopic audit of every single financial transaction my parents have made regarding this property. I want to know exactly how deep in the red they really are. Desmond nods, but a grim, serious shadow crosses his face. He reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a secondary red bordered file. He places it on the table, keeping his hand resting flat against the cover. An audit is already underway, Miss Washington, Desmond says softly, his tone completely shifting. But there is a much more urgent situation that requires your immediate attention. Something that goes far beyond unpaid rent or bruised egos. Something highly illegal. I narrow my eyes, leaning forward. What kind of situation? It concerns your brother-in-law, Bradley Sterling. Desmond says, his face dead serious. We detected a catastrophic breach attempt in the property records. It seems Bradley just made a very desperate and incredibly foolish move. Desmond slides the red-bordered file across the polished mahogany table with the absolute precision of a surgeon holding a scalpel. The vibrant crimson of the folder stands out violently against the dark wood, signaling an undeniable crisis. I lean forward, my forensic accounting instincts instantly taking over. The emotional shock of discovering my true wealth is entirely replaced by the cold, calculating focus of a woman who makes a living dissecting financial crimes. I flip open the heavy cardstock cover. Inside is a massive stack of legal documents, all stamped with the logo of a secondary, highly aggressive commercial lending firm based out of Delaware. It is not a traditional mortgage application. It is a hard money bridge loan, the kind of high-interest predatory lending agreement that only desperate people sign when traditional banks refuse to look their way. Look at the principal requested amount. Desmond says, his voice a low, tense rumble. And look at the collateral pledged to secure the funds. My eyes scan the dense legal jargon until I find the financial breakdown. The requested loan amount is a staggering $2 million. The collateral explicitly listed to guarantee this massive sum is the sprawling Buckhead estate, my estate. The very same property I was violently evicted from less than 2 hours ago. The primary applicant listed on the loan is Sterling Vanguard Holdings, the empty shell company that my brother-in-law Bradley uses to pretend he is a successful venture capitalist. I trace my finger down the page, feeling the raised ink of the printed text. Bradley does not own this house, I state flatly, my voice completely devoid of emotion. He has absolutely no legal standing to leverage this property as collateral. The secondary lender should have caught this during the preliminary title search. They would have caught it, Miss Washington, Desmond replies, tapping the second page of the document, if Bradley had not provided them with a completely fraudulent transfer of deed. He flips to the final page of the loan agreement. It is the signature and authorization page. My eyes lock onto the bottom right corner. There, written in smooth dark blue ink, is my name, Maya Washington. It is a very good forgery, mimicking the sharp angles of my cursive perfectly. But I am a forensic analyst. I spend my days tracking microscopic discrepancies in corporate ledgers. I can see the slight hesitation in the loop of the letter M, the unnatural pressure applied to the end of my last name. Bradley practiced this. He probably spent hours perfecting the forgery of my signature to steal my property. But a forged signature alone is not enough to secure a $2 million commercial loan. You need a corrupt notary public, and more importantly, you need verifying witnesses to legally attest that I signed this document willingly. Turn to the next page, Desmond instructs quietly. I flip the heavy sheet of paper over. The breath is violently knocked out of my lungs. There on the official witness verification lines are two perfectly legible, entirely authentic signatures. Marcus Washington, Vivian Washington. My parents. The silence inside the subterranean vault becomes deafening. The air feels suddenly freezing. I stare at the signatures of the two people who brought me into this world. The two people who just threw me out into the snow on Christmas morning. They did not just evict me, they sold me out. They actively participated in a massive, coordinated federal crime to steal $2 million using my stolen identity. They stood in the grand foyer this morning, calling me a failure, an embarrassment, a leech who was draining their resources. They threw crumpled $1 bills at my face and told me to walk to a homeless shelter. And they did all of that knowing they had already signed their names to a fraudulent loan document to secure millions for their white son-in-law. Bradley is a parasite. He was born into an old money family that lost everything to federal indictments, but he still walks through the world wrapped in the impenetrable armor of his white privilege. He married my sister Chloe, inserting himself into a wealthy black family, and immediately began acting superior to all of us. My parents, completely blinded by their desperate obsession with proximity to whiteness and fabricated prestige, treat him like absolute royalty. They cater to his every whim. They praise his non-existent business acumen. They view him as the ultimate status symbol for their country club image. And they are so hopelessly desperate to maintain the illusion of his success that they literally sacrifice their own black daughter to the slaughter. They committed identity theft to fund his lies. Why does he need $2 million so urgently, I ask, my voice dropping an octave, sounding dangerous even to my own ears. A man who claims to be building an empire does not take out a hard money loan with a 12% interest rate. This is the financial move of a man who is actively drowning. Desmond nods in agreement. We ran a shadow audit on Sterling Vanguard Holdings the moment this loan application triggered our security tripwires. Bradley is completely insolvent. His venture capital fund is nothing more than a poorly disguised crypto shell game. The market crashed, and his investors are demanding their returns. He is currently facing massive liquidity issues. If he does not secure an injection of capital immediately, he is going to face a massive investigation from the Securities and Exchange Commission, and possibly face violence from some very unsavory private creditors. He is backed into a corner, Miss Washington. I stare at the fraudulent documents processing the sheer magnitude of their stupidity. Sovereign Heritage Trust holds the master deed to the property within the Obsidian Heritage Trust. Any attempt by an outside lender to place a lien on the house automatically sends a silent priority alert directly to Desmond's desk. Bradley thought he was being a genius by using a secondary lender completely unaware that my grandfather's trust was an impenetrable fortress designed specifically to catch rats exactly like him. Miss Washington, Desmond says, his tone shifting into strict operational mode. He reaches across the table toward the secure landline phone resting on the mahogany surface. I have the direct number for the Fraud Division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation on speed dial. We have undeniable proof of identity theft, attempted bank fraud, and conspiracy. I can have federal agents at your parents' house within the hour. We will freeze the loan application immediately and have Bradley Sterling arrested before he even finishes his Christmas brunch. Desmond picks up the heavy receiver of the phone. Shall I make the call? I look at the telephone. I look at the forged signature on the paper. I think about Chloe standing on the staircase, laughing at my worn-out suitcase, and telling me to enjoy the slums. I think about Bradley telling me that America has no place for lazy people. I think about my mother calling me a stain on the family name. If I stop the loan now, it is merely attempted fraud. Bradley will hire an expensive defense attorney. My parents will claim they were confused about the paperwork. They will cry in front of a judge, play the victims, and likely escape with a slap on the wrist and a fine they cannot afford. The elite social circles in Atlanta will cover it up, and they will continue parading around the country club, pretending they are untouchable. Attempted fraud is a mistake, but executed wire fraud is a mandatory federal sentence. I reach across the table. I place my hand directly over Desmond's hand, pressing the telephone receiver firmly back onto its base. The sharp click of the phone hanging up echoes loudly in the vault. Desmond looks up at me, his eyes wide with profound confusion. Miss Washington, if we do not block this transaction, the secondary lender is going to wire $2 million directly into Bradley's corporate account by tomorrow morning. I slowly pull my hand back, folding my arms across my chest. A dark, terrifying satisfaction begins to bloom in the center of my chest. The victim they threw out into the snow is dead. The woman sitting in this chair is a predator, and the hunt has officially begun. Do not block the transaction, I command. my voice slicing through the silence like a freshly sharpened blade. Desmond stares at me completely stunned. You want me to let them steal your property? They are not stealing anything, Desmond. They are simply building their own gallows. I leaned forward, tapping the signature page with a perfectly steady hand. Let the secondary lender approve the file. Let the funds disperse entirely. I want that $2 million to clear the federal wire system and land directly into Bradley's account. I want him to taste the money. I want him to spend a dime of it. I looked directly into Desmond's eyes, my expression utterly ruthless. Because the exact second those funds cross state lines and hit his ledger, this ceases to be a simple case of identity theft. It becomes a fully executed, undeniable act of first-degree federal wire fraud. I do not want to give my brother-in-law a warning. I want to give him a minimum of 15 years in a federal penitentiary. Desmond absorbs my words. A slow, respectful understanding washes over his features. He realizes exactly what I am orchestrating. It is a masterpiece of financial destruction. And what about your parents? Desmond asks quietly. They are co-conspirators on a federal crime. My parents wanted to throw me to the wolves to protect their precious privileged son-in-law. Let them learn what happens when you discover your daughter is actually the one leading the pack. I straighten my posture, projecting the absolute authority of my new position. Authorize the clearance on our end. Let him sink as deep as he possibly can. And Desmond. I say, a cold smile touching the corners of my mouth. Activate full executive control of the Obsidian Heritage Trust for me right now. I have a family reunion to attend. Exactly 1 month later, the crisp winter air of Atlanta is entirely forgotten inside the grand ballroom of the most exclusive country club in Buckhead. Tonight is the annual New Year Gala for the absolute highest tier of African American society in the city. The room is a dizzying, swirling display of generational wealth and fabricated prestige. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over women draped in custom silk gowns, many wearing the signature pink and green colors of their elite sorority. Men stand in tailored velvet tuxedo jackets, holding crystal glasses of single malt bourbon, discussing hospital administration, corporate litigation, and municipal politics. The air is thick with the scent of expensive perfume, roasted prime rib, and unadulterated arrogance. I stand near the edge of the dance floor, watching the room spin around me. I deliberately chose to wear a simple, unbranded black dress. It is neat, modest, and completely unremarkable. I blend right into the shadows, looking exactly like the destitute, struggling woman my family desperately needs me to be. I hold a glass of sparkling water, observing the predators circling their prey. My mother Vivian requested my presence tonight through a brief, demanding text message. She did not invite me out of a sudden surge of maternal guilt or a desire for family reconciliation. She summoned me because a society matriarch needs a tragedy to highlight her own triumphs. I am her favorite prop. I am the cautionary tale she uses to make her own parenting look heroic. I do not have to wait long. Vivian spots me from across the room. She is wearing a blindingly loud sequined gown that aggressively demands attention, a heavy diamond necklace resting against her collarbone. She detaches herself from a group of prominent judges' wives and marches directly toward me, her fake smile firmly plastered on her face. She makes sure to speak loud enough for the entire VIP section to hear. Maya, she announces, her voice carrying over the smooth jazz playing in the background. I am so shocked you actually showed up. I thought you would be too embarrassed to show your face in a room like this. Did you take the public bus to get to the country club tonight? Several of the wealthy women standing nearby turn their heads, their eyes scanning my plain dress with thinly veiled pity and revulsion. I just wanted to wish the family a happy new year, I reply, keeping my voice entirely flat, offering her absolutely nothing to feed on. Vivian lets out a theatrical sigh, placing a hand over her chest as if she is enduring an unbearable burden. She turns to a state senator's wife standing to her right. This is my youngest, Maya. She is still completely unemployed. It breaks my heart, it really does. We had to ask her to leave the family home last month because she simply refuses to apply herself. I hear she is renting a tiny damp room in a terrible neighborhood on the south side now. But what can a mother do? You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it work a decent job. The senator's wife offers a sympathetic click of her tongue, looking at me as if I am a stray animal that just wandered into a five-star restaurant. It must be so difficult for you, Vivian, the woman says. Especially having a daughter like Chloe who is doing so incredibly well. The contrast must be exhausting. Vivian beams her chest, puffing out with overwhelming pride. Oh, Chloe is an absolute angel, and Bradley is a financial genius. They are actually closing a massive real estate deal tonight. Right on cue, the crowd parts to make way for the golden couple. Chloe and Bradley walk into the VIP section looking like royalty. Chloe is wearing a custom couture gown that cost more than a reliable used car. Bradley is in a stark white tuxedo jacket looking completely at ease in a room full of wealthy black professionals who treat him like the ultimate prize. They have spent the last 4 weeks burning through the $2 million federal wire transfer they stole using my identity. I know this because my forensic accounting team at the trust has tracked every single penny. They bought luxury cars, booked lavish vacations, and paid off Bradley's immediate dangerous creditors. But $2 million disappears very quickly when you are desperately trying to look like a billionaire. Now Bradley needs more cash. He is using the fake momentum of his stolen wealth to solicit legitimate investments from the prominent doctors and lawyers in this very room. He is running a textbook Ponzi scheme right in front of my eyes. Bradley spots me standing next to Vivian. His eyes light up with a predatory gleam. He strides over holding a snifter of scotch flanked by 3 wealthy orthopedic surgeons he has been aggressively pitching all night. Maya, Bradley says, his voice dripping with loud, weaponized condescension. So glad you could crawl out of the slums to join us. I was actually just telling these gentlemen about our new $3 million estate development project in the suburbs. It is a massive undertaking. We are revolutionizing luxury living. The surgeons nod in agreement, completely captivated by Bradley's fabricated confidence. Chloe steps up and wraps her arm around Bradley, flashing her perfect expensive veneers at the crowd. We are just so blessed, Chloe chimes in, ensuring every eye is on her. We are building generational wealth. It takes vision, relentless hustle, and a completely uncompromising mindset. Something some people just do not understand. She shoots a venomous glare directly at me. Bradley takes a sip of his scotch, adopting a posture of fake magnanimous charity. You know, Maya, I actually feel a little bad for you. It is a new year, and I am feeling generous. Since you are still painfully unemployed and living in a dumpster, I can offer you a lifeline. Our new corporate holding company is going to need a reliable janitorial staff. I can give you a job cleaning the floors at my new office. I will even pay you $1 above minimum wage. Consider it a family discount. The sheer audacity of his offer hangs in the air. The society women behind my mother let out soft, scandalized gasps, while the doctors chuckle politely at what they assume is just tough love from a successful brother-in-law. Vivian looks at me with a triumphant smirk, thrilled that her narrative of my complete failure is being reinforced so publicly. I do not flinch. I look Bradley directly in the eyes. I study the slight sheen of nervous sweat accumulating near his hairline, a stark contrast to his arrogant posture. I know the anatomy of a desperate man. That is incredibly generous of you, Bradley, I say, my voice steady and piercingly clear. But I am curious about your new development project. Managing a $3 million estate development usually requires significant liquid capital. I imagine those high-interest short-term bridge loans from secondary lenders in Delaware must carry a brutal monthly carry cost. Are you sure you have the cash flow to pay a janitor right now? The polite smiles instantly vanish from the faces of the 3 surgeons. Investors hate the sound of short-term, high-interest bridge loans. It screams instability. Bradley freezes. The color drains completely out of his face, leaving him looking sickly and pale. His eyes dart around the room, frantically trying to figure out how a supposedly unemployed, destitute woman knows about the exact type of predatory loan he secretly used to fund his illusion. Chloe immediately steps in to do damage control, her voice shrill and panicked. Do not listen to her, she laughs nervously, waving a dismissive hand at the investors. My sister is deeply unwell. She makes up these insane financial delusions because she is completely broke. She does not know the first thing about venture capital. Bradley recovers his posture, though his smile is now rigid and forced. He turns back to the wealthy doctors, raising his voice to reassert his dominance over the room. My sister-in-law has a vivid imagination, he says loudly. Let me show you gentlemen what real success looks like. Tonight is about celebration, not the jealous ramblings of a failure. He snaps his fingers in the air, signaling the head sommelier who has been standing at attention near the bar. The sommelier rushes over, carrying a silver tray holding a mobile payment terminal. I want to buy a round of your finest vintage Dom Perignon for the entire VIP section, Bradley announces grandly, making sure his voice reaches every corner of the ballroom. Let us toast to new beginnings and massive returns. Put it all on my tab. A murmur of impressed approval ripples through the crowd. Vivian beams, practically glowing with pride at her wealthy white son-in-law. Chloe looks at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated victory. The sommelier quickly calculates the total. It is a staggering $15,000 bar tab. He holds out the payment terminal with a polite practiced smile. Bradley reaches into his tailored jacket and pulls out a heavy matte black titanium credit card. He drops it onto the silver tray with a dramatic flourish, a true master of the universe buying the admiration of everyone in the room. The sommelier inserts the heavy metal card into the digital terminal. The machine processes the transaction. A harsh, sharp beep cuts through the smooth jazz music. The sommelier looks down at the screen, his professional smile faltering for a fraction of a second. "I am sorry, sir," the sommelier murmurs, keeping his voice low to preserve the client's dignity. "It seems this card has been declined." The surrounding conversation suddenly stops. The heavy silence is instantaneous and suffocating. Vivian's smile drops entirely. Chloe's eyes go wide with sudden terrifying confusion. "Declined," Bradley snaps, his voice cracking with sudden panic. "That is impossible. There is no limit on that card. Run it again. Your machine must be broken." The sommelier dutifully runs the card a second time. The machine emits another loud, unforgiving beep. The bright red letters on the digital screen are visible to the surgeon standing right next to him. "Declined. Fraud alert." Bradley begins to sweat profusely. He frantically digs into his wallet, pulling out a platinum card and shoving it at the waiter. "Try this one. Hurry up." The sommelier swipes the second card. Beep, declined. A third card. Beep, declined. The murmurs in the VIP section transform from impressed whispers into sharp, judgmental gossip. The elite members of the country club are watching the Golden Boys' financial facade disintegrate in real time. The three orthopedic surgeons step back, physically distancing themselves from the stench of a bouncing check. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by a harsh, vibrating ring. Bradley's phone sitting in the breast pocket of his tuxedo begins to vibrate violently. Then Chloe's phone rings. Then Vivian's phone rings. I stand perfectly still at the edge of the circle. I take a slow, deliberate sip of my sparkling water. I do not need to look at their screens to know what those urgent notifications say. I know exactly what is happening. The federal wire fraud tripwires I activated this afternoon have finally snapped shut. All of their linked accounts, their credit lines, their emergency funds, they are all being systematically frozen by the federal government at this exact second. The money has dried up. The illusion is over. The predators are about to realize that the cage they thought they built for me was actually a trap built entirely for them. I watch Bradley stare at his phone screen in absolute paralyzing horror, and I simply smile. The night is just getting started. Bradley abandons the surgeons without another word. He practically sprints out of the VIP ballroom, his expensive leather shoes slipping slightly on the polished marble floor. I follow at a slow, measured pace, watching him crash through the heavy mahogany doors into the secluded hallway near the coat check. The smooth jazz from the ballroom is muffled here, replaced by the frantic, heavy breathing of a man whose financial house of cards just spontaneously combusted. He is pacing violently back and forth. The angle of his body is entirely slanted, defensive, and erratic, like a cornered animal, realizing the trap has already snapped shut on its leg. He holds his phone to his ear, his knuckles turning stark white from the pressure. "Operator," he barks, his voice echoing shrilly down the empty corridor. "Representative, give me a human being right now. Do you have any idea who I am?" The automated voice on the other end is entirely indifferent to his entitlement. I can hear the robotic responses leaking from his earpiece. "We are sorry. Access to this account has been suspended pending federal review. To speak with a fraud investigator, please press 1. Bradley lets out a guttural sound of pure rage. He hangs up and furiously dials another number. His offshore Cayman routing, a secondary shell account, an emergency line of credit. Every single call yields the exact same robotic rejection. The $2 million wire transfer he initiated using my stolen identity did not just bounce. It triggered a catastrophic systemic lockdown across his entire financial ecosystem. The feds do not just block stolen money. They freeze every single asset connected to the offending entity to prevent capital flight. Bradley is completely locked out of his own life. Before he can hurl his phone against the velvet wallpaper, the heavy ballroom doors swing open again. My mother Vivian and my father Marcus burst into the hallway. They are not looking at Bradley. They are staring at Vivian's phone screen with expressions of absolute, unadulterated terror. Vivian's hands are shaking so violently she can barely hold the device. The thick diamond bracelets on her wrists clatter together, a harsh metallic sound that underscores her sudden panic. "Marcus." Vivian gasps, her voice stripped of all its usual aristocratic polish. It sounds shrill, breathless, and terrified. Look at this email. It just came through the priority inbox. It is from JW Property Management. Marcus grabs the phone from her shaking hands. He squints at the bright screen, his jaw dropping open. What do you mean they know? He hisses, his voice trembling. How could they possibly know about the bridge loan? I lean quietly against the ornate wall fixture a few yards away, perfectly concealed by the dim lighting of the hallway. I watch the absolute devastation wash over my parents' faces. JW Property Management is the formidable faceless corporate entity that handles the day-to-day operations of the Obsidian Heritage Trust. It is the company my parents believe they rent their Buckhead mansion from. It is the company I now possess absolute executive control over. Read it aloud, Marcus. Vivian demands, her voice cracking as she looks nervously back toward the ballroom doors, terrified that her sorority sisters might overhear this catastrophic disaster. Marcus clears his throat, reading the glowing text with mounting horror. Notice of critical lease violation and immediate financial assessment. Dear tenants, a routine title monitoring sweep has detected an unauthorized secondary mortgage lien placed against the property located in Buckhead. This action constitutes a severe and immediate breach of Contract Clause 4B regarding the unauthorized collateralization of leased assets. Marcus stops reading. He looks up at Bradley, who is still staring at his frozen banking apps. Marcus marches over and shoves the phone directly into Bradley's chest. Did you alert the landlord about your damn bridge loan? Marcus demands, dropping all pretense of respect for his wealthy white son-in-law. They are fining us. We told you to keep the Delaware loan completely off the grid. I did not tell anyone anything, Bradley snaps, slapping Marcus's hand away with aggressive force. Get off me, old man. My entire venture fund is locked out. The banks flagged the wire transfer. Someone triggered a federal hold on my accounts. Vivian lets out a sharp, breathless cry, grabbing her husband's arm. Read the rest of the email, Marcus. Read the penalty. Marcus pulls the phone back, his eyes scanning the bottom of the message. The blood drains completely from his face. Effective immediately, your monthly lease payment is hereby tripled to $9,000 due to extreme liability risk. Furthermore, a punitive penalty fee of $50,000 has been assessed to your ledger for breach of contract. Total outstanding balance of $59,000 is due in certified funds within 24 hours. Failure to remit payment in full by tomorrow evening will result in immediate emergency eviction proceedings and the forfeiture of all personal property remaining on the premises. The hallway descends into a suffocating, terrifying silence. $59,000. Due in 24 hours. If they do not pay it, the sheriff will arrive to physically drag them out of their multi-million-dollar mansion and dump their designer belongings onto the curb for the entire elite neighborhood to see. It is the ultimate social death sentence. And because Bradley's accounts are entirely frozen by the federal government, he cannot bail them out. The fake billionaire has no access to capital. What are we going to do? Vivian whispers, tears of genuine panic finally breaching the corners of her eyes, threatening to ruin her expensive makeup. If we get evicted, the country club will revoke our membership. The church board will ask us to step down. We will be ruined, Marcus. Ruined. At that exact moment, Chloe pushes through the ballroom doors. She is frantic, her couture gown swishing loudly as she searches the hallway. She sees her husband and her parents standing in a circle of absolute devastation. She quickly pieces together that the facade has cracked. Her eyes dart around the corridor, desperate to find an exit strategy, a scapegoat, or a lifeline. Her gaze lands directly on me. I am standing perfectly still, holding my glass of sparkling water, my expression entirely unbothered. I do not look like a woman who was kicked out of her house on Christmas morning. I look like a woman who is watching a highly entertaining stage play. Chloe's perfectly manicured facade shatters entirely. The poised, elegant lifestyle influencer vanishes, replaced by a vicious, cornered predator. She marches across the hallway, her high heels clicking aggressively against the marble. Before I can take a sip of my water, her hand clamps down hard on my wrist. Her perfectly manicured nails dig sharply into my skin. You are coming with me, Chloe hisses, her voice a low, venomous growl. She does not wait for a response. She yanks my arm, dragging me forcefully down the corridor and shoving me through the heavy oak doors of the luxurious ladies' lounge. The bathroom is a sprawling expanse of rose gold mirrors and velvet seating areas, and thankfully it is completely empty. Chloe pushes me inside and slams the heavy door shut, twisting the brass lock until it clicks loudly. She turns to face me. The mask of the virtuous, successful older sister is completely gone. Her eyes are wild, desperate, and filled with a deeply ingrained entitlement that assumes the entire world exists solely to serve her needs. "I know you have money stashed away," Maya Chloe demands, stepping directly into my personal space, pointing an accusing finger at my chest. "You do not buy designer clothes, you do not take vacations, and you do not go out. You have years of savings sitting in some pathetic little bank account. I need you to pull out a cash advance right now. I need $50,000. I look at her finger pointing at my chest. Then I look up into her panicked, furious eyes. I slowly brush her hand away from my dress. "You are asking me for $50,000. I say, my voice perfectly steady and dangerously quiet. "Less than a month ago, you stood on a staircase and mocked me while your husband told me to go clean floors. Now you have dragged me into a bathroom to demand my life savings to bail out your fraudulent lifestyle." Chloe lets out a harsh, bitter laugh, crossing her arms tightly. "Do not play the moral high ground with me right now. You are living on pandemic relief funds or unemployment checks or whatever government handout you managed to scam. I know you have credit. Go to an ATM, call a loan shark. I do not care what you have to do. Bradley's accounts are temporarily frozen due to a bank error, and Mom and Dad are about to lose the house because of some greedy corporate landlord. You owe this family. You are going to step up and fix this." I step forward, closing the distance between us, forcing Chloe to instinctively take a step back. "I owe this family absolutely nothing." I reply, the temperature in the room plummeting with my words. "You have spent your entire life taking everything from me. You took my peace, you took my parents' affection, and you took my dignity. Your husband is a fraud. You are a fraud, and your impending financial ruin is entirely your own problem. I am not giving you a single dime." Chloe's face twists into an expression of pure, unadulterated malice. She realizes that bullying is not working, so she immediately resorts to her most trusted weapon: blackmail. "You listen to me, you pathetic, useless failure," Chloe snarls, stepping back into my space, her voice rising to a shrill, hysterical pitch. "If you do not wire that money to Bradley's secondary account by tomorrow morning, I will make sure your life in this city is completely over. I will stand at the pulpit this Sunday in front of the entire congregation and tell the church board that you stole money from the charity collection plates. I will tell all of Mom's sorority sisters that you were caught stealing grandmother's vintage jewelry to buy drugs. I will fabricate a police report. I will make sure you never walk into a respectable black establishment in Atlanta ever again. I will turn you into such a pariah that you will wish you had frozen to death in the snow on Christmas morning." She stands there breathing heavily, entirely convinced that her vicious threats have broken my spirit. She expects me to cower. She expects me to cry. She expects me to pull out my phone and desperately transfer my savings to protect my non-existent reputation. Instead, I reach into my small evening bag. I do not pull out a credit card. I pull out my phone. The screen is glowing brightly. The voice recording application is active, the red timer ticking steadily upward, capturing every single word of her extortion attempt in crystal clear, high-definition audio. Chloe stares at the red recording icon. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out. The vicious predator suddenly realizes she just walked blindly into a steel trap. "Thank you for the confession, Chloe," I say, my voice smooth and lethal. "A documented threat of defamation and active extortion. This will pair beautifully with the federal wire fraud charges your husband is about to face." I tap the screen, saving the audio file securely to the cloud. I look up at my sister, watching the absolute horror shatter the last remnants of her arrogance. "Check your husband's business contracts, Chloe. And maybe check the ownership records of the property development you are so proud of. You are going to find out very quickly that the landlord you are so terrified of is standing right in front of you." I turn my back on her, unlock the heavy oak door, and walk out of the bathroom, leaving my sister choking on her own toxic poison. I stop with my hand resting on the heavy brass doorknob. The click of the lock echoes loudly, but I do not open the door just yet. Behind me, Chloe lets out a guttural, desperate sound. It is a noise completely devoid of her usual aristocratic polish. She lunges forward, her manicured fingers clawing frantically through the air, desperately trying to snatch my phone from my grasp to delete the recording. I anticipate the movement. I step sideways with effortless precision, letting her own momentum betray her. Chloe loses her balance entirely. The heavy layers of her custom couture gown tangle violently around her legs, causing her to stumble hard. Her shoulder crashes against the expansive rose gold mirror, spanning the length of the luxurious vanity, rattling the expensive glass. I do not walk away. Instead, I turn around and step directly into her personal space. I invade the physical boundary she has always used to keep me feeling small and insignificant. I take another step forward, forcing her to press her back flat against the cold mirror. We are exactly eye to eye. I do not raise my voice. I do not shout. I speak with a quiet, lethal intensity that makes the air in the luxurious bathroom feel incredibly thin. You actually think the privilege of being a golden child can save you tonight? I ask, my gaze locking onto her terrified eyes. You think standing behind a white husband with a fake trust fund gives you an impenetrable shield against reality? You brought Bradley into this family because you thought his complexion and his fabricated pedigree would elevate you above the rest of us. You let Mom and Dad worship him. You weaponized his supposed wealth to secure your spot at this elite country club to impress your sorority sisters and to look down on me. But privilege only works when you have the capital to back it up. Chloe shakes her head, her breath coming in short, erratic gasps. Her eyes dart wildly toward the door, then back to my face. The facade of the untouchable lifestyle influencer is completely shattered. She looks like a frightened child who has finally been caught in a massive, unforgivable lie. I step even closer, trapping her against the vanity. You sat at family dinners and lectured me about the importance of building generational wealth. You built an entire social media brand preaching about financial literacy for Black women. Yet you never bothered to do a basic background check on the man you married. You never audited his company. You just blindly swiped his credit cards and enjoyed the prestige. And when the money dried up, you gladly watched him forge my signature to steal my home. You are not a victim, Chloe. You are a willing accomplice. Shut up, Chloe hisses, though her voice is trembling so violently, it lacks any real venom. You are bluffing. You do not own anything. You are just trying to scare me because you are jealous. I smile. It is a slow, terrifying smile that finally extinguishes the last flickering ember of hope in her chest. Check your phone, Chloe. She stares at me, paralyzed by fear. I said check your phone, I command, my voice slicing through the silence like a freshly sharpened blade. Open your email. Look at the contract for your new suburban mansion. The $3 million estate you have been bragging about to every single doctor and lawyer in the ballroom outside. The house you plan to use to solidify your status as Atlanta royalty. Check the status of your closing documents. Chloe fumbles with her expensive clutch. Her hands are shaking so badly she drops it onto the marble floor. Her lipstick, her keys, and her phone scatter across the tiles. She scrambles to her knees, frantically grabbing the phone. Her Face ID fails twice because she is hyperventilating. She finally types in her passcode and opens her priority inbox. I stand over her, watching the bright light of the screen illuminate her horrified features. Bradley needed to show massive liquid assets to secure that property. I explain, my tone conversational and utterly ruthless. He needed to put down a non-refundable earnest money deposit of $500,000 just to get the builder to hold the lot. Where do you think that cash came from? It came from the fraudulent wire transfer he initiated using my stolen identity. He took the money he stole from my estate and wired it directly into the escrow account of the property developer. Chloe scrolls frantically through her emails. I can see the exact moment she finds the message from the real estate broker. Her eyes widen to impossible proportions. She lets out a sharp, strangled gasp, bringing a hand to her mouth. Read the name of the parent company that owns the development, I instruct quietly. Read the corporate entity that holds the deed to your dream home. She stares at the glowing screen, her lips moving silently, as she reads the fine print she and her husband completely ignored during their desperate rush to secure a status symbol. Obsidian Vanguard Developments, Chloe whispers, her voice cracking. A subsidiary of the Obsidian Heritage Trust, I confirm, savoring the absolute devastation washing over her face. Did Bradley really think he was outsmarting the system? Did he really think he could just wire stolen funds into a random corporate escrow account without triggering a massive compliance check? My grandfather built this trust to be an impenetrable fortress. Every single subsidiary is monitored by a team of elite financial auditors. Chloe looks up at me from the floor, tears finally spilling over her eyelashes and ruining her immaculate makeup. The moment Bradley wired that dirty money into my company account, my compliance officers flagged it. I continue delivering the final crushing blow. Federal law requires any corporation to immediately report suspected money laundering and freeze the transaction. So my company did exactly what the law dictates. We reported the fraudulent wire transfer to the federal authorities. We suspended the construction of your $3 million estate. And according to the ironclad breach of contract clause that Bradley signed because he attempted to use stolen funds to purchase the property, His $500,000 deposit is now permanently forfeited. No, Chloe cries out, dropping the phone onto the marble floor. No, Maya, please. That is all the cash we had left. If we lose that deposit, we have nothing. We cannot pay the country club dues. We cannot pay the car leases. Bradley owes money to private investors. They are going to ruin us. You are already ruined, I reply coldly. The project is dead. The money is gone. It has been absorbed back into my trust as a punitive penalty. You have absolutely no home to move into. You have no funds to bail our parents out of their eviction. And the federal agents are currently building a massive indictment case against your husband for wire fraud and money laundering. Chloe scrambles forward, grabbing the hem of my simple black dress. The proud, arrogant golden child is now literally on her knees begging the sister she threw out into the snow. Maya, I am begging you. You have to reverse this. You have the power to stop the investigation. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you authorized the loan. If Bradley goes to prison, my life is completely over. The church will excommunicate me. The sorority will strip my letters. I will be a total laughingstock. I look down at her grasping hands. I do not feel an ounce of pity. I do not feel a shred of sibling loyalty. I only feel the profound, satisfying weight of absolute justice. I reach down and pry her manicured fingers off my dress one by one. You should have thought about your precious reputation before you conspired to steal my home, I say, taking a step back toward the door. You should have thought about the church board before you threatened to frame me for theft. You built your entire life on a foundation of lies, cruelty, and stolen money. Now the foundation is collapsing, and I am not going to lift a single finger to catch you. I turn the brass lock and pull the heavy oak door open. The muffled sounds of the jazz band and the clinking glasses from the ballroom drift into the quiet bathroom. I look back at my sister one last time. She is sitting on the floor amidst her scattered belongings, sobbing uncontrollably into her hands, entirely broken by the weight of her own arrogance. Enjoy the rest of the gala. Chloe, I say softly. I highly suggest you make the most of the open bar. It is the last luxury you are going to experience for a very long time. I step out into the brightly lit corridor, letting the heavy bathroom door swing shut behind me, sealing her inside her own personal nightmare. I straighten my posture, smooth out the fabric of my dress, and walk back toward the ballroom. The hunt is not over yet. I still have parents to deal with. The morning after the gala, the sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown executive office feels like a spotlight illuminating a stage. I sit in the center of a soundproof glass suite, towering 40 stories above the Atlanta skyline. 3 massive ultra-high-definition monitors wrap around my polished mahogany desk. I am not looking at standard market fluctuations or global currency rates. I am watching the digital pulse of a dying animal. The proprietary risk management software of Sovereign Heritage Trust allows me to monitor every single financial inquiry made against the Buckhead property. A blinking red alert flashes across my center screen. Bradley is making his final desperate move. 10 miles away, inside the mansion, they still foolishly believe they possess the air is suffocating under the weight of pure panic. I do not need to guess what they are doing. I have securely patched into the property's integrated smart home security system. I can hear every frantic, terrified word through the high-fidelity microphones installed in the vaulted living room ceiling. Bradley is pacing the length of the antique Persian rug like a rabid dog. His face is sickly pale, and his expensive designer shirt is completely soaked with nervous sweat. He is aggressively waving an iPad in front of my father's face. Marcus sits slumped on the sofa, nursing a heavy glass of neat bourbon at 10 o'clock in the morning, looking like a man who just watched his entire legacy evaporate. Vivian is hyperventilating into a silk pillow, her carefully maintained sorority matriarch persona entirely shattered by the looming threat of public eviction. We have exactly 8 hours before the property management company sends the sheriff to physically drag us out onto the street, Bradley shouts, his voice cracking with hysteria. And we have less than that before my offshore investors realize my bridge loan was denied. If those guys find out I do not have their capital, they are not going to send a polite collection letter. They are going to send people to break my legs. We need cash right this second. Marcus shakes his head, his hands trembling violently. We cannot just sell the ancestral home, Bradley. It has been in the Washington family for decades. If the Boule or the church board finds out we liquidated the estate in a fire sale, we will be permanently excommunicated from Atlanta society. We will be laughingstocks. Bradley stops pacing and glares at my father with a look of absolute unvarnished disgust. He finally drops the respectful son-in-law routine. Are you actually worried about a country club membership right now? Bradley sneers, his voice dripping with venom. If I go down for wire fraud, I am taking this entire family with me. You and Vivian signed those forged loan documents as verifying witnesses. You are co-conspirators. If the federal authorities raid this house, they are putting all three of us in handcuffs in front of your precious neighbors. Vivian lets out a loud, dramatic wail at the mention of handcuffs. She grabs her husband's arm, her manicured nails digging into his suit jacket. Marcus, he is right. We cannot go to federal prison. I cannot wear an orange jumpsuit. The humiliation would literally kill me. We have to sell the house. We have to do whatever Bradley says. Bradley taps the screen of his iPad furiously. I found an institutional buyer online, Zenith Capital Acquisitions. They are a massive private equity fund that buys luxury distressed properties for cash in under 24 hours. No appraisals, no inspections, no questions asked. They will wire the funds directly into our accounts by 5 o'clock today. Marcus looks up, a glimmer of desperate hope flashing in his bloodshot eyes. How much are they offering? 40 cents on the dollar, Bradley admits, gritting his teeth. It is a severe lowball offer. They are giving us exactly enough to pay off the $59,000 eviction penalty to the landlord and just enough left over for me to quietly refund my angry investors and secure a defense attorney. We walk away with absolutely nothing else, but we stay out of federal prison. Back in my glass office, I lean back in my ergonomic chair and take a slow, highly satisfying sip of my black coffee. I smile at the monitors. Zenith Capital Acquisitions is not a massive faceless private equity fund. It is a highly specialized corporate shell company that I registered in Delaware exactly 3 weeks ago. I am the sole owner and acting president of Zenith Capital. They are literally panicking themselves into selling my own house back to me for a fraction of its market value, all to generate the cash they need to pay the eviction fines they currently owe me. It is a flawless, beautiful loop of absolute financial destruction. But there is one final crucial catch that they are about to discover. Through the audio feed, I hear Bradley let out a sharp string of curses. He taps the iPad screen again, his breathing becoming shallow and erratic. Wait, there is a condition on the rapid cash transfer. The title company underwriters ran a preliminary sweep on the deed. Because the property is tied to an old family lineage, the automated system flagged a potential phantom claim. They need a simple quitclaim deed, a waiver of inheritance signed by all immediate living children of the current owners to guarantee a completely clean title transfer. The living room goes dead silent. They need Chloe to sign it, Vivian says breathlessly. That is fine. She will sign whatever we need. Not just Chloe. Bradley snaps, his voice rising in panic. It says all immediate living children. They need Maya to sign it too. The automated system flagged her name in the county registry. Zenith Capital will not wire a single dime until they have a legally notarized signature from Maya explicitly waiving any future claim to this estate. I watch the red recording light pulse on my monitor. The moment has arrived. Call her, Marcus orders, his voice rough with desperation. Call her right now. Tell her it is a tax emergency. Tell her whatever she needs to hear. Just get her to the notary public before the 5 o'clock deadline. A few seconds later, my personal cell phone begins to vibrate on my mahogany desk. The caller ID displays my mother's name. I let it ring 3 times, heightening her agonizing anxiety. On the 4th ring, I tap the screen and answer, keeping my voice perfectly flat and deliberately exhausted, playing the role of the defeated outcast they expect me to be. Hello, I say quietly. Maya, sweetheart. Vivian gasps into the receiver. She instantly turns on the waterworks, her voice trembling with fabricated maternal affection and manufactured distress. Thank God you answered. We are in a terrible bind, honey. The family accountant made a catastrophic error with our property taxes. The city is threatening to seize the house by this evening if we do not consolidate our assets immediately to pay the fines. I stare out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the sprawling city below, listening to her weave a web of desperate lies. That sounds like a terrible situation, Mom, I say softly. But I am not sure how that involves me. I do not live there anymore, remember? You threw my suitcase out into the snow. Vivian completely ignores my statement, pushing forward with her relentless manipulation. We are refinancing the estate through a private commercial lender, she lies smoothly, her voice gaining a frantic edge. But because of some stupid, outdated bureaucratic rule from when your grandfather was alive, the title company needs all the children to sign a routine waiver. It is just a meaningless piece of paper, Maya. It just says you do not have a claim to the tax debt. It protects you. We need you to meet us at a notary office downtown in 2 hours to sign it. I remain completely silent on the line. I let the silence stretch out, forcing her to stew in her own panic. Maya, please, Vivian begs, the fake tears now flowing freely. We are your parents. You have to do this for us. If we do not get this loan approved today, we are going to lose everything. I lean forward, resting my elbows on my desk. Why should I sacrifice my afternoon to help the people who called me a worthless embarrassment? I ask, my tone hardening just enough to show resistance. Why should I help Bradley? The question shatters the last remaining fragment of Vivian's composure. The fake maternal warmth instantly evaporates, replaced by the vicious toxic entitlement that defines her core being. She stops pretending. She resorts to the most deeply ingrained, sickening hierarchy of our family dynamic. Because Bradley is a white man with a brilliant corporate future. Vivian hisses into the phone, her voice dropping into a harsh, cruel whisper that echoes through my silent office. You are a 32-year-old single black woman working dead-end jobs. You have absolutely nothing to lose. You have no reputation to protect. Bradley is building an empire. He has investors. He has status. You cannot destroy his entire life over a petty grudge about some overdue basement rent. You must sacrifice this for the greater good of the family. You owe us your compliance. If you do not sign this paper, his blood is on your hands. I close my eyes for a fraction of a second. Even though I have known for years that my mother valued her proximity to whiteness and fake wealth over my very existence, hearing her say the words out loud, explicitly demanding that I lay down on the tracks so a fraudulent white man can walk over my back, is breathtakingly vile. I open my eyes. The coldness in my veins solidifies into pure, unbreakable steel. Send me the address of the notary, I say, my voice completely devoid of any human emotion. I will meet you there at 2 o'clock. I hang up the phone before she can utter another word of toxic gratitude. I look up at my center monitor. The bold golden logo of Zenith Capital Acquisitions glows brightly against the dark screen. I pick up my suit jacket from the back of my chair. My parents think they have just successfully manipulated their scapegoat into saving their lives. They have absolutely no idea they are walking directly into the slaughterhouse. The downtown Atlanta skyline reflects blindingly off the glass facade of the towering legal firm. I walk through the heavy double doors of the executive suite at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The air conditioning is freezing, matching the ice currently running through my veins. The receptionist directs me to conference room B. I can hear their voices bleeding through the frosted glass before I even touch the brushed steel handle. Bradley is loudly berating a paralegal about the complimentary coffee, demanding an espresso, completely oblivious to the fact that he is hours away from a federal indictment. My mother is complaining to my father about how the severe stress of the day is ruining her expensive dermal fillers. They are literally standing on the precipice of absolute financial annihilation, yet their primary concern remains their superficial appearance and their unearned superiority. I push the heavy glass door open and step into the room. The conversation dies instantly. Marcus, Vivian, Chloe, and Bradley are lined up on one side of a massive mahogany conference table like a firing squad. On the opposite side sits Harrison Caldwell, my personal corporate attorney, playing the role of a neutral acquisition agent for Zenith Capital. My family has absolutely no idea who he really is. Bradley leans back in his plush leather chair, stretching his legs out. He looks exhausted, the bags under his eyes dark and heavy from a night of sheer terror, but his inherent arrogance remains entirely intact. Nice of you to finally show up. Bradley sneers, checking his gold watch with a sharp flick of his wrist. We have millions of dollars moving through the global wire system today, and we are forced to sit here waiting on a glorified secretary to scribble her name on a piece of paper. Chloe scoffs, examining her perfectly manicured acrylic nails, refusing to even make eye contact with me. Do not use big words around her, Brad. She probably does not even know what a quitclaim deed actually means. Just point her to the dotted line so she can sign away her imaginary rights and go back to her miserable, pathetic little life in the slums. My mother does not reprimand them for their blatant disrespect. She does not defend me. She just looks at me with sheer, unadulterated impatience. Sit down and sign the document, Maya. We are running out of time. Bradley has very important investors waiting for these funds to clear. You need to do your duty to this family and stop holding up progress so we can get back to our lives. I take the single empty seat at the far end of the long mahogany table. I do not say a word. I just look at them. They are so blindingly arrogant, so wrapped up in their desperate need to maintain their country club facade and protect their golden white son-in-law, that they cannot see the massive steel jaws of the trap waiting right beneath their feet. Harrison Caldwell slides a thick stack of legal documents across the polished wood. Before we proceed to the final signatures, Harrison says, his voice the absolute picture of corporate neutrality. I need verbal confirmation for the record that all parties fully understand the specific terms of this distress sale. Zenith Capital Acquisitions is purchasing the Buckhead estate for exactly $800,000. This is a severe, unprecedented markdown from the actual market value accepted by the sellers in exchange for an immediate same-day cash wire transfer. Do you all formally consent to these terms? Marcus nods vigorously, sweat beading on his forehead despite the freezing air conditioning. Yes, we consent entirely. Just process the paperwork and get the funds released to my son-in-law immediately. Harrison pushes the primary seller agreement toward my father. Marcus grabs the expensive luxury pen provided on the table and signs his name with trembling urgency. Vivian snatches the pen next, signing right below him. Bradley and Chloe sign the subsequent pages as verifying family witnesses, sealing their own absolute doom with swift, eager, greedy strokes. They are literally signing away the very last asset they have in the world, fully believing it will save their fake empire. Finally, Harrison slides the single-page quitclaim waiver toward me. It is the document stating I explicitly waive any and all rights, inheritance claims, or financial interests in the Buckhead estate. Bradley laughs under his breath, a cruel, mocking sound that grates against my ears. Go ahead and sign away your imaginary inheritance, Maya. You will always be at the bottom of society anyway. You do not have the mindset for real wealth. You do not understand how generational leverage works. This is how the real players handle high-stakes business. You should be taking notes instead of looking so miserable. I pick up the pen. I look directly at Bradley's smug, entitled face. Then I look at my mother's demanding, toxic glare. I sign my name with a smooth, flawless flourish, pressing the ink deeply into the paper. I push the document back across the table to Harrison. Harrison collects the entire stack of documents. He aligns the edges perfectly, then presses his official state notary stamp onto the final pages with a heavy, satisfying thud that echoes like a gavel in a courtroom. He taps his secure tablet screen once, then twice, watching the loading bar hit 100%. Signatures verified and uploaded to the county registry, Harrison announces, calmly adjusting his tailored suit jacket. The title has been officially transferred to Zenith Capital Acquisitions. The transaction is completely finalized. Bradley immediately stands up, practically vibrating with greedy anticipation. He slams his hands down on the mahogany table. Excellent. Wire the $800,000 directly into my offshore holding account right now. I need that routing number instantly. Do not make me wait another second. I have creditors breathing down my neck. I slowly place my pen down on the table. The sharp click cuts through the heavy air. I bring my hands together and clap. Once, twice, 3 times. The slow, rhythmic mocking sound forces every single eye in the room to turn away from the lawyer and lock directly onto me. Harrison Caldwell takes off his reading glasses and folds them neatly, placing them on top of the finalized contracts. He looks directly at my father, his professional demeanor dropping into something far more chilling. Mr. and Mrs. Washington, the money has indeed been wired by our financial department. However, it did not go into Bradley's holding account. Bradley freezes completely. The color violently drains from his face, leaving him looking like a ghost. What the hell are you talking about? Bradley shouts, his voice cracking with pure panic. Where is my money? I need that cash to pay off my investors. As part of the mandatory routine background sweep for this distressed property sale, Harrison continues smoothly, completely ignoring Bradley's rising hysteria. Zenith Capital discovered a massive 10-year-old federal tax lien attached to Marcus and Vivian Washington. It appears you have been living a highly lavish lifestyle, paying country club dues, and buying luxury vehicles while aggressively evading federal taxes. You currently owe the Internal Revenue Service exactly $795,000 in back taxes and accumulated penalties. My parents stop breathing. By strict federal law, Harrison states delivering the fatal blow, any funds generated from the sale of your primary real estate asset must immediately be redirected to satisfy government debts before any private disbursement can occur. The funds have already been claimed and seized by the United States Treasury. The remaining $5,000 has been absorbed by our legal fees. There is absolutely nothing left. Vivian lets out a sharp, strangled gasp, clutching her chest as if she has just been shot. The IRS, she shrieks, her voice reaching a pitch that physically hurts my ears. But we hid that debt. We structured it away through our shell companies. Nobody was supposed to find that. We were going to pay it off eventually. You cannot hide from the federal government. Mother, I say, my voice slicing through the chaos in the room like a frozen blade. And you certainly cannot hide from the chairman of Zenith Capital Acquisitions. Bradley slams his fists on the table again, his eyes darting frantically between Harrison and me. He is hyperventilating, realizing that his get-out-of-jail-free card has just vanished into thin air. He just forced his in-laws to sell their home to pay a debt that did not even benefit him. Who the hell is the chairman of Zenith Capital? Bradley screams, spittle flying from his lips. I need my money right now. Give me my money. I lean back in my chair, crossing my legs elegantly. A predatory, lethal smile spreads across my face as I watch their entire world burn to the ground. You are looking at her. I stand up from my chair at the far end of the mahogany table. The sudden movement breaks the paralyzed silence in the room. Every eye tracks me as I walk slowly around the edge of the conference table. My heels click against the hardwood floor with a steady rhythmic authority. I reach into my leather portfolio and pull out the original gold-embossed master deed from Sovereign Heritage Trust. I toss the heavy stack of documents directly into the center of the table. The papers slide across the polished wood and come to a halt right in front of my father's trembling hands. Pick it up and read it, I command, my voice echoing off the glass walls. Read the name of the true owner of the Buckhead estate. Marcus stares at the documents as if they are covered in poison. His hands are shaking so violently he can barely turn the thick parchment pages. He forces his eyes to focus on the legal print. He reads the name of the trust, and then he reads the name of the sole beneficiary and executive director. He drops the papers instantly. The last remnants of his aristocratic pride drain completely from his face, leaving him looking hollow and ancient. Grandfather Jeremiah saw right through your fake country club facade 10 years ago, I state, pacing slowly behind their chairs. He knew you would squander every single dime trying to impress people who do not even like you. He knew you cared more about Greek letters and society galas than actual financial stability. He never left you that house. He transferred it into the Obsidian Heritage Trust before he died. I am the sole owner. Vivian shakes her head frantically, her perfect blowout falling into her eyes. No, that is impossible. We pay the property taxes. We pay the maintenance. You pay rent, I correct her, my voice turning to absolute ice. You have been month-to-month tenants for an entire decade. That $3,000 you aggressively extorted from me every single month for a freezing basement room was the exact amount you owed my property management company to keep a roof over your own heads. You were using my survival money to pay your rent to me. And on Christmas morning, you stood in the foyer, called me a worthless parasite, threw crumpled $1 bills at my face, and evicted your own landlord out into the snow. Chloe shrinks back into her chair, her eyes darting between me and the legal documents on the table. The reality of the situation is crushing her manufactured reality. The glamorous lifestyle influencer is realizing she is completely destitute. But evicting me was just a symptom of your arrogance. I continue, stopping right behind Bradley's chair. The real tragedy is your profound stupidity. When you let your precious privileged son-in-law forge my signature to secure a $2 million bridge loan, you explicitly violated your lease agreement. When you signed those documents as verifying witnesses, you committed your first federal crime as co-conspirators. I lean down slightly, resting my hands on the back of Bradley's leather chair. He is completely rigid, sweating profusely, staring straight ahead. And today, I whisper, ensuring every single syllable cuts deep into their panic, you brought your criminality to an entirely new level. You sat in this pristine conference room and eagerly signed closing documents to sell a multi-million-dollar estate that you do not own. You just committed interstate wire fraud, real estate fraud, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny all in a single afternoon. You handed me the exact weapon I needed to destroy you. Vivian suddenly gasps loudly. The sheer magnitude of the legal and social annihilation facing her finally breaches her denial. Her meticulously crafted society matron persona shatters. She resorts to the only manipulation tactic she has left when she loses control. She plays the ultimate victim. She clutches the high collar of her designer dress, her chest heaving dramatically. Her eyes roll back slightly as she knocks over her crystal water glass. The water spills across the mahogany table, soaking into the edges of the fraudulent contracts. My heart, Vivian shrieks, her voice piercing and hysterical. Marcus, I cannot breathe. My chest. She is killing her own mother. Call an ambulance, I am having a massive heart attack. She slumps heavily against Marcus, gasping for air with exaggerated theatrical wheezes. She expects everyone to drop everything and rush to her aid. She expects the guilt to force me into submission. Harrison Caldwell. My corporate attorney does not even flinch. He sits across the table, calmly wiping a few drops of spilled water from his briefcase. I look down at my mother with absolute, unadulterated disgust. Save the performance, Mother, I say flatly. The paramedics cannot cure a federal indictment. Your heart is perfectly fine. It is your bank account and your reputation that are currently flatlining. Marcus tries to hold Vivian up, but his own strength is failing. The proud patriarch, the man who demanded respect from the entire community, is reduced to a stuttering, broken mess. He looks up at me with tear-filled eyes. "Maya, please!" Marcus begs, his voice cracking horribly. "We did not know. We were just trying to save the family. We were trying to protect our legacy. You cannot do this to us. We are your parents. We are your blood. Blood is what you use to keep leeches attached," I reply without a shred of hesitation. "I am done bleeding for you to maintain your illusion of wealth. You made your choice when you sacrificed me to protect him." I point directly at Bradley. The mention of his name snaps Bradley out of his paralyzed state. The realization that the bridge loan is dead, his offshore investors are going to murder him. The IRS has seized the Zenith Capital funds, and the FBI is likely building a racketeering case against him, pushes him completely over the edge. The fake billionaire facade disintegrates. The charming, sophisticated white savior of the Washington family is replaced by a desperate, cornered coward. Bradley shoves his heavy leather chair back so violently it crashes backward onto the hardwood floor. He jumps to his feet, his face red and slick with sweat. He points a shaking finger directly at Marcus and Vivian. "This is your fault!" Bradley screams, his voice cracking with pure hysteria. "All of you! You forced me to do this. You lied to me about your wealth. You told me this family had generational money. You told me that house was fully paid off. You made me sign those papers to save your pathetic social status." Chloe stands up, reaching out toward her husband, completely devastated by his sudden hostility. "Brad, baby, please calm down. We can figure this out together. My sister is just trying to scare us." Bradley violently slaps Chloe's hand away, as if her touch is infectious. He backs away toward the frosted glass doors, putting as much physical distance between himself and my family as possible. The racial dynamic he has always weaponized subtly to demand respect in their black upper-class circles now flares up as his ultimate defense mechanism. He uses his whiteness as a shield. "Do not touch me!" Bradley shouts, his eyes wild and dangerous. "I am not going down for your ghetto financial scams. I am a white man from a respectable family. I have a pristine record. You people set me up. You manipulated me into this. You dragged me into your fraudulent, incompetent mess to use me as a scapegoat. The authorities will know you tricked me. I am going to the FBI right now and telling them you forged all those signatures yourselves." Chloe freezes. The color drains completely from her face. The perfect golden couple, the lifestyle influencers who preached about building empires together, are instantly destroying each other to save their own skins. Chloe stares at the man she worshipped, the man she let humiliate her own sister, as he loudly and proudly throws her under the bus using the most vile racist undertones possible. I watch the utter devastation wash over Chloe's features. I watch Marcus and Vivian realize that the son-in-law they treated like royalty just called them ghetto scammers, and threatened to send them to federal prison. The betrayal is absolute. The destruction is magnificent. Chloe stands perfectly still, her pristine designer gown suddenly looking like a poorly fitted costume. I watch the exact moment her entire reality fractures. The muscles in her face twitch as the devastating weight of Bradley's words crashes into her chest. He did not just insult her, he weaponized the very racial dynamics my parents had worshipped him for. For years, Vivian and Marcus treated Bradley like a trophy, a golden ticket that validated their status in elite Atlanta society. They catered to his every whim, overlooked his blatant unemployment, and sacrificed their own black daughter to keep him comfortable. And now, the second his fraudulent empire collapses, he instantly, violently distances himself from them, using their race as a shield to protect his own skin. "You recorded us," Marcus stammers, his voice barely a whisper as he stares at the man he once proudly called his son-in-law. Bradley lets out a sharp, breathless laugh that sounds entirely devoid of sanity. He reaches into the inner pocket of his ruined tuxedo jacket and pulls out his smartphone. He grips it like a loaded weapon. "You think I am stupid enough to go down with a sinking ship?" Bradley sneers, his eyes darting frantically around the glass conference room. "I knew from the day I married into this family that you were all completely obsessed with appearances. You have no real cash. You just have country club dues and a desperate need to show off for people who do not even like you. When my venture fund hit a rough patch, I knew you would do whatever it took to keep my name out of the bankruptcy courts to protect your precious reputation." Chloe takes a shaky step forward, her hands trembling so violently she can barely keep them at her sides. "Brad, please." She begs, her voice cracking into a pathetic, high-pitched whine. Do not do this. We gave you everything. I supported you. I defended you to everyone. You gave me an illusion, Bradley snaps, slashing his hand through the air to cut her off. You gave me a fake lifestyle funded by predatory credit cards and your sister's stolen money. And when the walls started closing in, I made sure I had an insurance policy. Bradley aggressively taps the screen of his phone. He cranks the volume up to the absolute maximum setting. He turns the speaker toward the center of the mahogany table so that the audio will carry perfectly across the room. Harrison Caldwell. My attorney sits back in his chair and folds his hands, watching the spectacle with the detached fascination of a scientist observing a chemical explosion. A recording begins to play. The audio is crisp and unmistakably clear. It is the sound of my father's voice captured in what sounds like his private study at the Buckhead mansion. Just sign her name, Brad. The recorded voice of Marcus Washington says, sounding impatient and utterly ruthless. Maya is a nobody. She is sitting in the basement completely clueless. She does not know how commercial real estate works. The bank just needs a signature to release the $2 million. If we do not get that bridge loan approved, your investors are going to file a lawsuit, and the scandal will ruin Vivian in front of the entire church board. I am not losing my standing in the boule over this. Sign her name. Vivian and I will gladly sign as the verifying witnesses. We will tell the notary that Maya authorized it. The bank will not look twice at a prominent family like ours. Just get the cash and save the estate. The recording stops. The silence that follows is so heavy it feels like it could shatter the glass walls of the conference room. My mother Vivian drops her head into her hands. The fake heart attack is entirely forgotten. She realizes that her golden son-in-law has just produced a high-definition audio confession of her husband orchestrating a major federal crime. They are dead to rights. There is no spinning this. There is no manipulating the narrative. Bradley has handed the federal government the murder weapon with their fingerprints plastered all over it. You recorded my father in his own house? Chloe whispers, her eyes widening in sheer unadulterated horror as she looks at the man she shares a bed with. You set us up. You used us to get the money, and you kept this recording to blackmail us if you ever got caught. I did what I had to do to survive a family of incompetent frauds, Bradley shouts, his face turning a blotchy, aggressive shade of red. He points a shaking finger directly at my parents. You forced my hand. You are the ones who committed identity theft. I am a victim of your manipulation. When I walk into the federal building downtown, I am handing this audio file straight to the prosecutor. I will testify against all three of you in exchange for full immunity. You are going to rot in federal prison, and I am going to walk away completely clean. Something inside Chloe completely snaps. The poised, curated lifestyle influencer vanishes entirely. The desperate, cornered woman who just realized her entire existence is a lie takes over. With a feral, primal scream that echoes off the ceiling, Chloe lunges across the polished mahogany table. She does not reach for Bradley's phone. She reaches directly for his throat. Her expensive acrylic nails dig viciously into the collar of his white tuxedo shirt. Bradley stumbles backward, letting out a yell of surprise as the sheer force of her attack sends him crashing into the heavy glass door of the conference room. The impact shakes the entire suite. Chloe is relentless. She swings her fists wildly, her designer rings catching Bradley across the cheek, drawing a sharp line of blood. You parasitic coward! Chloe shrieks, completely losing her mind as she violently tears at his expensive jacket. You used me. You used my family. You stole my sister's house, and now you want to throw us in a cage to save your own pathetic life. I will kill you. I swear to God I will kill you myself. Marcus jumps out of his chair, realizing that a physical assault is only going to add aggravated battery to their rapidly growing list of felony charges. He rushes around the table, grabbing Chloe by the waist and desperately trying to haul her off her husband. Vivian screams from the other side of the room, begging them to stop, terrified that the law firm staff outside the frosted glass are listening to the total annihilation of her family. Bradley shoves Marcus backward with brute force, sending the older man stumbling into a row of leather chairs. Get your crazy daughter off me! Bradley roars, raising his arm to block another frantic swing from Chloe. I am leaving. I am going straight to the authorities. You are all done. I sit at the far end of the table, perfectly still, watching the violent, chaotic destruction of the people who tormented me for 32 years. I do not have to raise my voice. I do not have to lift a single finger. The toxic, deceitful foundation they built their lives upon is collapsing and crushing them underneath the rubble. They are tearing each other to pieces, exposing the absolute worst parts of their souls, all because the money they worshipped has finally vanished. It is the most beautiful, vindicating sight I have ever witnessed. Bradley manages to wrench himself free from Chloe's grip. His tuxedo is torn, his face is bleeding, and his hair is wildly disheveled. He looks like a maniac. He points his phone at them one last time, his chest heaving. "Do not try to follow me," Bradley spits out, backing toward the glass door. "I am calling the local field office the second I get into the elevator. You better find yourselves a good public defender because you are definitely not going to be able to afford a real lawyer after today." He turns his back on his weeping wife and his defeated in-laws, reaching for the heavy steel handle of the conference room door, fully believing he is about to make a grand, triumphant escape. He believes his white privilege and his secret recording are going to guarantee his freedom. I pick up my cell phone from the polished mahogany table. I do not look at Bradley. I do not look at my parents. I simply tap a single pre-programmed contact on my screen and press the call button. I do not say a word into the receiver. I just let it connect. Bradley pulls the glass door open. He takes exactly one step out into the reception area. The piercing, unmistakable wail of heavy sirens suddenly erupts from the street below. The sound is massive, echoing violently against the glass skyscrapers of downtown Atlanta. It is not just one siren. It is a chorus of them, aggressive and multiplying, converging directly on our exact location. Bradley freezes in the doorway. His triumphant smirk vanishes, replaced by a sudden paralyzing confusion. I slowly stand up from my chair and walk toward the massive floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street. I look down at the bustling avenue 40 stories below. The flashing red and blue lights are blinding even in the afternoon sun. Two massive armored black SUVs with federal government plates screech to a violent halt, directly blocking the main entrance of the legal building. 4 heavily armed tactical agents step out of the vehicles, their tactical vests clearly emblazoned with the bright yellow letters of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Chloe stops crying. Marcus and Vivian freeze in place. The horrific realization washes over the room as the sirens continue to blare outside. I turn back to face my family, sliding my phone smoothly back into my tailored suit jacket. "You really thought you were the one controlling the board, Bradley?" I say, my voice ringing with absolute terrifying authority. "You thought you could commit federal wire fraud against my corporate trust record, your co-conspirators, and then casually walk into a field office to negotiate a plea deal on your own terms." I walk slowly toward him. He is backed against the doorframe, staring at me as if I am a ghost. I am a forensic financial analyst. I continue, stopping just a few feet away from his trembling figure. "When my security system flagged your fraudulent loan application an hour ago, I did not just sit back and watch. I sent the entire data packet, including the forged signatures, the IP address of your wire transfer, and the exact corporate routing numbers you used, directly to the federal task force. I pressed the button to deploy them the exact second you confessed to the crime in front of my attorney." Bradley looks down at his phone, realizing that his secret recording is entirely useless. He is not a whistleblower. He is the primary target of an active federal raid. "They are not coming here to listen to your excuses, Bradley," I whisper, delivering the final crushing blow. "They are coming up that elevator right now to put you in handcuffs." The heavy frosted glass doors of the executive suite do not just open. They are forcefully shoved apart. 4 federal agents storm into the reception area, their heavy tactical boots thundering against the polished hardwood floors. The chaos is immediate and overwhelming. The pristine, quiet atmosphere of the law firm shatters completely. Federal agents, hands where we can see them. Stay exactly where you are. The lead agent, a tall, unsmiling man with a badge clipped to his belt, marches straight through the open doorway of Conference Room B. He does not ask questions. He does not negotiate. He looks directly at the man standing frozen near the exit. Bradley Sterling. The agent barks, his voice carrying absolute authority. "You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." For a split second, Bradley genuinely believes he can talk his way out of this. He has spent his entire life slipping through the cracks of consequence, shielded by the color of his skin and the illusion of his family wealth. He puffs up his chest, squaring his shoulders, projecting the indignant outrage of a wealthy white man who has been slightly inconvenienced. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Bradley shouts, taking a step toward the heavily armed agent instead of complying. "You cannot just barge into a private legal proceeding. This is a misunderstanding. I have a team of corporate attorneys. I know the district attorney personally. You need to back off right now before I have your badge." The federal agent does not blink. He does not care about Bradley's imaginary country club connections. Turn around right now, or you will be charged with resisting a federal officer. Bradley loses his mind. The realization that his privilege has finally run out completely short-circuits his brain. He violently swats at the agent's arm, a desperate, pathetic attempt to push past him and run for the service elevator. It is the worst mistake of his entire life. In less than 2 seconds, the illusion of the untouchable venture capitalist is violently dismantled. 2 agents instantly close the distance. They grab Bradley by his expensive tailored lapels, spin him around, and slam him aggressively face first onto the polished mahogany conference table. The impact rattles the entire room. The crystal water glasses tip over, shattering onto the floor. "Get your hands off me!" Bradley screams, his voice cracking as his cheek is pressed hard against the wood. "My father is a partner at Vanguard. You are violating my civil rights. I want my lawyer. Call my lawyer. You have the right to remain silent." The agent recites methodically, pulling Bradley's arms forcefully behind his back. The sharp, heavy click of cold steel handcuffs snapping shut around his wrists echoes through the room. It is the sound of an empire turning to dust. I watch him thrash against the table, panting and red-faced, completely stripped of his dignity. Across the room, Chloe is hyperventilating. She is backed into a corner, her hands covering her mouth, watching the man she thought would elevate her social status being treated like a common criminal. She thinks she is just a bystander witnessing her husband's downfall. She is entirely wrong. A female agent steps around the struggling Bradley and walks directly toward Chloe. "Chloe Sterling," the agent says, reaching for the handcuffs on her own belt. "You are also under arrest for complicity in wire fraud and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. Please step away from the wall." Chloe stops breathing. Her perfect manicured hands drop to her sides. "No." Chloe gasps, shaking her head frantically. "No, you do not understand. I did not do anything. I am an influencer. I just signed where he told me to sign. I am the victim here. He lied to me. He manipulated my family. You signed as a verifying witness on a fraudulent commercial loan document used to secure stolen funds." The agent replies, her tone completely devoid of sympathy. "Turn around." Chloe bursts into violent, hysterical tears. The poised, arrogant golden child who just threatened to ruin my reputation in front of the entire church board is now sobbing uncontrollably as the cold steel clamps down on her own wrists. She begs the agents. She begs Harrison Caldwell. She looks at me with wide, terrified eyes, but I do not move a single muscle to help her. She made her bed, and now she gets to sleep in a federal holding cell. The sheer shock of seeing her perfect, favored daughter put in handcuffs finally breaks my mother completely. Vivian collapses. Her legs give out entirely, and she drops heavily to the hardwood floor. Her expensive designer dress pools around her knees. Her meticulous makeup is completely ruined, dark streaks of mascara running down her cheeks as she crawls across the floor toward me. Cease. Maya, Vivian wails, grabbing desperately at the hem of my tailored suit pants. She is sobbing so hard she is choking on her own breath. "Maya, please, you have to stop this. Tell them it is a mistake. Tell them you gave us permission. You cannot let them take your sister away. We are your family. We are blood. You cannot do this to your own mother." I look down at the woman weeping at my feet. I feel absolutely nothing. The well of my empathy dried up completely on Christmas morning. I slowly step backward, pulling the fabric of my pants out of her frantic, grasping hands. I look down at her ruined, desperate face. Blood does not steal their own daughter's money to feed a fraudster son-in-law, I say, my voice echoing cold and hollow above the chaos of the arrests. On Christmas morning, you threw my suitcase into the freezing street. You told me I was a failure. You told me to enjoy the slums. Today I am giving you back exactly what you gave me. The federal agents drag Bradley and Chloe through the frosted glass doors, their frantic screams fading rapidly down the long corporate corridor. I do not spare them a single backward glance. I look down at Vivian, who is still sobbing on the carpet, and Marcus, who is gripping the edge of the mahogany table, as if it is the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. I reach into my leather portfolio one final time. I pull out a single sheet of heavy, bright yellow paper. It is not a subtle document. It is designed to be highly visible, highly embarrassing, and legally absolute. I step forward and let the paper flutter down, landing directly over the water stains and ruined contracts on the table. "Read it," I command, towering over my father. Marcus stares at the yellow paper. His lips tremble uncontrollably as he reads the bold black lettering. "Notice of immediate eviction. That unpaid rent from last month, combined with the $59,000 penalty for your unauthorized commercial mortgage, triggered a critical default clause in your lease. I state, my voice resonating with cold, unyielding authority. You thought you were selling this estate today to cover your massive debts. Instead, you handed the property directly back to its rightful owner, triggered a federal tax seizure that wiped out your entire net worth and guaranteed your own permanent removal. You paid your debt with this eviction. Vivian lets out a raw, guttural wail from the floor. Maya, you cannot do this. Where will we go? All of our friends live in Buckhead. Our entire lives, our church standing, our society memberships, they are all tied to that house. We have a reputation to uphold. Your reputation was built entirely on stolen funds. And my silent suffering, I reply, looking down at her ruined designer makeup. And as of this exact second, that reputation is completely bankrupt. You do not have a country club membership anymore. You do not have a society to impress. You are just two criminals who narrowly escaped a federal indictment by the skin of your teeth. Marcus slowly sinks into the nearest leather chair. The proud, arrogant patriarch who loved to lecture me about black excellence and the American dream is completely annihilated. His shoulders are severely slumped, his chest hollowed out. He looks up at me from his seated position, his eyes bloodshot and pleading, forcing me to look down at him from a position of absolute undeniable power. We have nothing, Marcus whispers, his voice breaking into a pathetic rasp. We have absolutely nothing left, Maya. Please, just let us stay in the basement. We will pay rent. We will do whatever you ask. The sheer delicious irony of his request hangs in the freezing air of the conference room. The wealthy man who threw crumpled $1 bills at my face on Christmas morning and told me to walk to a downtown homeless shelter is now begging to live in my basement. The basement is currently being renovated, I say smoothly without a single ounce of pity in my heart. Chloe wanted a climate-controlled closet for her designer shoes, remember? I am turning it into a private wine cellar instead. I check the sleek silver watch on my wrist. It is currently 3:00 in the afternoon, I announce, delivering the absolute final sentence. My private security team is already stationed at the Buckhead property. They are waiting for you. You have exactly 2 hours to return to my house, gather whatever basic clothing you can fit into standard garbage bags, and vacate the premises entirely. You are not permitted to take any high-value assets, designer furniture, or artwork. Those belong to the trust to cover your outstanding property damages. If you are still on my property at 5:00, my security team will physically remove you for criminal trespassing. I turn my back on them and walk out of the conference room, the sharp click of my heels echoing down the hallway like the ticking of a countdown clock. 2 hours later, the bitter winter wind whips across the manicured lawns of the Buckhead estate. I am standing at the very top of the sweeping brick staircase, the heavy oak double doors wide open behind me. I look down from my elevated vantage point, watching the absolute destruction of their fabricated empire. The pristine circular driveway, usually reserved for luxury sedans and catered event vans, is now the stage for the ultimate walk of shame. Marcus and Vivian shuffle down the stone pathway. They do not have their custom leather luggage. They are carrying heavy-duty black plastic trash bags, stuffed haphazardly with whatever wrinkled sweaters and coats they could grab in their frantic panic. Several wealthy neighbors are standing on their own manicured lawns across the street, watching the spectacle in shocked silence. The whispers of the elite neighborhood have already begun. The mighty Washington family, the untouchable pillars of the community, are being thrown out like common vagrants in broad daylight. Marcus trips slightly on the bottom step, nearly dropping his trash bag. He does not look back. His pride has been so thoroughly crushed that he cannot even lift his head to meet the inquisitive stares of his former friends. Vivian is weeping silently, her head bowed in absolute crushing humiliation, clutching a garbage bag full of clothes tightly to her chest. I stand perfectly still on the top step, the antique brass key resting warmly in the pocket of my tailored suit. I watch them drag their miserable, pathetic belongings down the long driveway toward the street, completely banished from the sanctuary they tried to steal. The image of my parents dragging their black plastic garbage bags down the sweeping brick driveway slowly fades into the background. The bitter winter wind and the pale December sunlight dissolve, melting smoothly into the warm, cinematic glow of my present reality. I am sitting exactly where this story began, completely relaxed on my emerald green velvet sofa, high above the Atlanta skyline. The heavy antique brass key rests safely on the glass coffee table in front of me, gleaming under the ambient light. I raise a crystal glass of robust red wine to my lips, and take one final, deeply satisfying sip. The freezing chill of that Christmas morning is nothing more than a distant, powerless memory now. It has been entirely replaced by the absolute, unshakable comfort of financial independence and total liberation.